Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to another short war video, and today we have more major developments in Iran, Russia, and Ukraine, so let's get started with the breaking news. This morning, U.S. forces have begun carrying out the U.S. threat to send Iran back to the Stone Age, and they've struck and destroyed Iran's largest road bridge near the capital Tehran, and the U.S. has vowed more strikes as Iran prepares to retaliate. Meanwhile, Iran has shot down a Wing-Long 2 drone over their airspace, which is only operated in the region by Saudi Arabia and or the UAE, which likely suggests the Gulf states might have begun participating in attacks on Iran. And as the war escalates, the WTI crude oil prices have surged to a whopping $112 a barrel overnight as U.S. leadership suggests transitioning to a war economy. And also today, Russia's begun massive nuclear drills in Siberia using active nuclear warheads as the Ukraine war heats up in new major attacks. And it also seems to be that Russia might have lost another general in an attack on Crimea. So we have very big news to cover out of Russia, Iran, the Middle East, etc. So let's get started with our first piece of breaking news, which goes to OSINT Technical. And right now, this is our biggest piece of news of the day. We are getting brand new footage showing a U.S.-Israeli airstrike on the B1 road bridge in the Iranian city of Karaj today, and a large portion of the road deck can be seen collapsing. So this is a significant strike for many reasons. Number one, this is one of the first strikes we've seen since the U.S. threat of sending Iran back to the Stone Age, and it looks like this could possibly be one of the very first infrastructure strikes that we're seeing so far by the U.S. forces, and it's not really clear if this is a military target or a civilian target, but this bridge right here connected Karaj and Tehran together with one another. So many people are arguing that this is a civilian target that should not have been struck, but nonetheless, we have seen it this morning, and apparently it has begun of sending Iran back to the Stone Age. So let's take a look at our first video and see this bridge, which is the highest bridge in the Middle East in its entirety, and let's see it getting exploded by a U.S.-Israeli airstrike. So let's take a look. Alright, so there you have it. That is the B1 road bridge right there, the largest one in the Middle East getting exploded, and there's part of the road deck right there collapsing in on itself that you can see right there in the footage. So, once again, this is going to be a very contested strike because I'm sure a lot of people are noticing that this appears to be likely a civilian target for the most part. So, generally speaking, it's not permitted to hit these type of targets, but once again, the threat of sending Iran back to the Stone Age kind of implies strikes like this might be happening more frequently. So, that will be a majorly contested issue, and we'll have to see where that goes and if we learn more details about what this bridge was being used for. But jumping into our next one here, this one's going to go to Fitex Network, and we got some up-close pictures of the bridge itself after it was hit. So taking a look at our first image here, you can see there is part of it, and you can see it's a very clean break right there between two sections of the road bridge and the decking itself, and it looks like it was sheared right in between where the connecting wires are to suspend the bridge. So right there in the middle it was hit, and also we have a second image right here. You can see there it is right there from another angle. So the bridge is effectively destroyed. You can't obviously drive across that, or otherwise you might end up in foul shape. So we don't know if anybody was driving over the bridge at the time of the strike. That would be a very pertinent piece of information, because if civilians were on the bridge, that makes it even worse. So we'll have to see where that goes, but it looks like the U.S. is resorting to a new tactic of trying to get Iran to end the war. So moving into our next post here, this one's going to go to OSINT Technical, and we've also seen that the U.S. president has made a statement about this, and he's acknowledged the strike in a Truth Social post. And as you can see right here in his post, he said the biggest bridge in Iran comes tumbling down, never to be used again, and much more to follow. And it is time for Iran to make a deal before it's too late, and there is nothing left of what still could be become a great country, signed the president. So once again, like I said, this is going to be very highly contested, and it appears to be the U.S. president suggesting that more similar strikes like this one are going to be coming very soon. So, kind of a little bit iffy right here with this. I'm sort of being very conservative about this. It's obviously pretty iffy to say the least. So we'll have to see where this is going to go, and if civilians are being harmed in these attacks, we simply don't know, but it's certainly a big shift. But moving into our next one here, this one's going to go to none other than OSINT Technical yet again, and I just want to bring you all back to this, that the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, had posted back to the Stone Age the other day, and here's the tweet down here at the bottom if you want to go check it for yourself. And back to the Stone Age implies, I would assume, eliminating all of Iran's infrastructure. So a wild threat to say the least, and we'll have to see where that goes. If you also can tell, I'm kind of having a hard time with this because I'm not really sure to defend these actions or to say that these actions are terrible, but I think there's some big legal concerns at this point about the legality of these attacks. But moving into our next one here, this one's going to go to Ynet Global. And of course, as expected, Iran has begun threatening to retaliate by striking regional bridges, including in Israel, after their quote-unquote engineering masterpiece, which was the B1 bridge, was hit, and Iran said the B-1 bridge linked Tehran and Karaj was struck. They urged civilians to avoid the area, and adding that apparently another target was also hit in the process. So once again, we'll have to see where this goes. It looks like Iran will retaliate, and it does appear that Iran has the missile capability to retaliate. So, it could be that Iran interprets the back to the Stone Age threat to mean that it's now time to start striking the Gulf states' desalination plants, maybe their electrical infrastructure, and this could spiral out of control pretty quick. So we'll have to see if Iran takes it to that level or not, and we'll just have to keep an eye on what's going to happen here in the next coming days. But jumping into our next one, this one is going to go to none other than Alexandria C4, and we've also seen heavy airstrikes in Tehran itself outside of the bridge attack, and it looks like these are huge airstrikes. It looks like they're taking down possibly entire city blocks inside the capital city. So let's take a look at the video and see the strike. So as you can see, absolutely massive strike right there. That is a massive plume of smoke right there. And sadly, I don't know what part of Tehran this was. It appears to be maybe on the outskirts of Tehran possibly, but you can see there a very large hit indeed. So it looks like they're definitely ramping up the size of munitions that are being used to hit targets inside of the capital city. But moving into our next post here, this one's going to go to WorldSource and we've also seen explosions at the Garm Dara ammunition depots in Tehran. And here is one of those targets right there. You can see a very large explosion at an ammunition depot. And also in our second post here, there's another angle of it, as you can see right here from this photo. So it looks like the military targets are still continuously being hit by U.S. and Israeli forces, as you can see right there in those photos. But moving on to our next one, this one goes to Global Military Info, and this is a very big bombshell report right here that we're getting from this post. Because we can see that Iranian forces appear to have shot down a Wing Long 2 over Shiraz, reportedly operated by Saudi Arabia and or the UAE, and the incident would indicate that Gulf states are now participating in operations over Iran. So this is a Chinese-made drone, by the way. This is a Wing Long drone, and that's not a joke. That's actually the name of it, by the way. It's called a Wing Long. So apparently Saudi Arabia operates it, and also the United Arab Emirates also operates this drone as well. And I would presume that China is not launching these drones into Iran. I would presume that because we don't know of any Chinese assets in the area that could launch a drone like this at the very moment. So I would assume that it could indicate the Gulf states are likely involved, at least providing surveillance or something to that effect, which is a very big change, by the way, and we're waiting on more confirmation about this. I'm sure the Iranians are probably going to interpret this as some type of aggressive action by the Gulf states, but we're keeping a sharp eye on that one because that could mean that the Gulf states have entered the war. But moving out of that piece of potentially bombshell news right there, moving on to our next one. This one goes to Alexandria C4, and we've also heard a new report about the U.S. and our domestic economy. We're hearing that the U.S. wants to switch to a war economy in 2027 with massive increases in military spending and also cuts to healthcare and other domestic agencies to fund it. So they're wanting to switch to a war economy, which is a very interesting time to do that because right now the U.S. economy is not doing too well, to be perfectly honest at the moment. So they're wanting to cut healthcare. I'm not sure how popular that's going to be. And also they're wanting to cut other things as well. Like, for example, I think they had mentioned Medicaid and Medicare possibly. So, I mean, I'm not sure how popular that's going to be at a time where a lot of Americans are struggling, but we'll have to see. But they're asking for a much larger military budget. They're asking for several $100 billion more for the Iran war. So we'll have to see how that goes over. I don't think that's going to go over well. But moving into our next one, this one's going to go to the Cobasai letter. Also out of France right now, Macron is not happy, and he's come out swinging today. And to give you some more details, some background information about why Macron is so angry today, there were some very nasty comments made by the U.S. president toward Macron, and it was suggesting that there was something going on between his wife and also him. So, there's some stuff going on there that's gotten pretty personal and pretty nasty. So Macron is angry, and he came out today and said it's unrealistic to open the Strait of Hormuz by force, and he also says that the U.S. president is contradicting himself every day on Iran, and he needs to get a coherent message out. So there's also some more spicy words exchanged between Macron and the U.S. president, but we won't get into those here. But just to show you, right now France is not very happy, and they're kind of feeling a little bit offended about the whole situation, which kind of seems understandable at this point. So, professionalism might be warranted, but I don't think professionalism is currently on the table at the moment. But France, not happy. But moving on to our next one, this one's going to go to Disclosed TV. Meanwhile, Iran is still running their mouth like crazy, and despite being actually decimated, like their military has been hurt pretty badly, although they do still have missile launching capabilities, their military has been hurt, their navy's been largely destroyed. There is a lot of destruction when it comes to the Iranian military, but they're still standing. That's the problem. But we are hearing that Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad Ghalibaf, has claimed that around 7 million Iranians have stepped up and declared declared that they are ready to pick up arms to fight for Iran. And once again, you got to take that with a grain of salt because the Iranians do lie. And once again, the Iranians don't have enough arms, munitions, etc. to even arm 7 million people. It's just simply not feasible. So I would highly doubt this claim right here. But once again, Iran is still, puffing up and trying to make it seem like they're ready to go. But I would cast some doubt on this to say the least. But it sounds to me like Iran's still scared of a ground invasion that could be imminent. And it's a fair enough fear because we have enough forces in the region to potentially take an island near the Strait of Hormuz or even invade Bandar Abbas, the naval port inside of Iran. So it's definitely possible, and the forces are still arriving in the region as we speak for some type of ground operation. But moving on from that though, and moving into our next post, we've also gotten some bad news yet again that another European country has rejected U.S. requests to cross their airspace to support the operation inside of Iran. We have heard this time that Austria has rejected all U.S. requests to cross their airspace since the start of the Iran war, and apparently the Austrians are saying that every time a similar request has been made in the past, it has refused it. And generally speaking, Austria is trying to claim neutrality here. They're saying that they don't want this to cross their airspace from the U.S. military because they don't want to break their neutrality for the most part. So that's their claim, but also at the same time, generally we've seen a pretty negative attitude from Europe right now about supporting the operation against Iran, and they have their reasons, of course, but I'm going to leave it up to y'all about what you think about that whole situation. I'm going to leave my opinion out for the moment. So Austria is the latest European country to say no to U.S. overflights over their airspace. But moving into our next one, this one's going to go to the Kopasai letter yet again. And oh boy, I got some news on the oil for you this morning. The oil is not doing good. WTI crude oil prices have gone through the roof overnight, and I'm really not sure why that has gone so berserk. Like, it's really gone wildly berserk. It's up 13% on the day as the result of this post right here. So we've seen it surge up to $112 a barrel right now, and I would assume this is because of the announcement that the U.S. is going to let the Strait of Hormuz reopen naturally, but the timing of this is just kind of wild. Like, it just went berserk out of the blue, and it's really gone wild. It went from like $100 a barrel all the way up to $112. So it looks like it's hovering, I think currently as I'm recording this video, around $110 a barrel. So maybe it'll come down, but that's a very disturbing sign right there to see it skyrocketing as of this morning. But with that, folks, it's now time to move into our next piece of news and also our next segment of news, because we have some major news coming out of Russia and Ukraine this morning, and we are hearing from NOAA reports that Russia has begun major nuclear drills in Siberia involving Yars intercontinental ballistic missile systems equipped with active nuclear warheads apparently, and the exercises are focusing on maneuver operations and also the active mobilization of these nuclear forces. So I can't show you the video sadly, but I can show you a couple of clips out of it. As you can see right here, there are the transporter launchers right here, as you can see, with the ICBMs on them, and there they are moving around. This is in Siberia as far as we're aware, and this is a pretty large exercise that we're seeing this morning. So it's coming at a time where global tensions are still very high, of course, and this appears to be another possible escalation by the Russians with this mobile military nuclear exercise. So of course it's got people on edge, and it's got Europe a little bit worried about this whole situation. But moving into our next one, we also have another big piece of news from Bloomberg, and I think people might have a hard time even believing this post right here, but Russia is planning on sending a second oil tanker to Cuba, by the way. And remember, Cuba is currently under an energy blockade by the US Navy, and it has been since January of this year. But yet, at the same time though, the US felt it was okay to let Putin send a first oil tanker to Cuba. It's already docked and unloaded its oil, and now Russia, meaning Putin, is trying to send another one to Cuba as well. So, I mean, it was already wild enough to let one Russian ship through to Cuba, so we're waiting to see if the US is going to let a second through. If it does, that's going to be really odd in my opinion, because the US has made a very strong point of denying our allies access to Cuba for any reason whatsoever, but at the same time, it seems to be the US is okay with letting Putin send oil to Cuba, which seems a little bit weird if you ask me. I'm not trying to be political here, but that seems a little bit weird, and now we're seeing that apparently they're going to test it again. So I would say the right move in this situation would definitely be to block this oil tanker from going to Cuba, but we'll have to wait and see, because I thought they were going to block the first one. I was kind of surprised when they let the first Russian tanker through to Cuba, because that broke the energy blockade that the US had spent a ton of effort enforcing since January. It just simply broke it. So we'll have to see what's going on with that, but certainly odd behavior and odd decision making with that. But moving into our next one, this one's going to go to woofers, and we've also seen that Ukraine has put the hurt on Crimea, and in fact they've put the hurt on Crimea very bad last night, and they report hitting a base for Orion drones, those are Russian drones of course, destroying 4 during the process, along with the support equipment, they also hit an AN-72 transport plane on the tarmac, and as well, an old P-37 radar was spotted and eliminated as well, and it was a very big hit. And also, I'm going to show you a snippet of the actual attack itself, but it looks like Ukraine did a number on the base inside of Crimea last night, and the Russians were caught off guard completely, and it looks like a lot of major strikes are happening on Crimea as of late. So let's take a look at the video. So let's just take a look at a small snippet here. As you can see, there is the base burning. As you can see from this drone view right here, they've already hit it once, and they're about to go for a second hangar. This is apparently where the AN aircraft was being held, apparently in this hangar, and they hit it right there. So as you can see, they were hitting this base over and over. There's multiple fires down the location, and notice the Russians are doing literally nothing. They were caught completely off guard. So a very big win for Ukraine yet again, and this is not the only loss that we've seen coming out of Crimea. We've seen another major loss I'm about to get to in just a minute, but as you can see, they hit basically every aircraft storage hangar at this location right here with little resistance whatsoever. So a very big hit by Ukraine, another big victory as we can see. But moving into our next one, here's the other big loss from Crimea. We've heard that apparently Lieutenant General Alexander Ivanovich Otrochenko was eliminated in an AN-26 plane crash, and we heard about this plane crash a couple of days ago, and it's also possible that 6 more officers from the Northern Fleet headquarters were also eliminated, but the information needs more confirmation. So it could be possible that this guy right here, a general in the Russian military, might have been eliminated in these recent strikes and that recent plane crash that we saw over Crimea's airspace. And if that is true, that is a huge loss for the Russians, and also a major embarrassment that over Crimea, which Russia generally controls for the most part, one of their guys got taken out, and not just any guy, it was a top guy as well. So that could be a major embarrassment. But moving on from that and moving into our next one here, we've also heard a statement from Poland this morning, and Poland is not happy either. It sounds like the trend is Europe is not feeling very good this morning, and we've heard from the Polish Prime Minister in a tweet this morning. He says, the threat of NATO's breakup, easing sanctions on Russia, a massive energy crisis in Europe, halting aid for Ukraine and blocking the loan for Kyiv by Orban, it all looks like Putin's dream plan. And I would have to agree with Donald Tusk. It does appear to be something that Putin would love to see. Pretty much everything is lining up for Putin's favor, and a large part of that is because the United States is facilitating it to a large degree. So a little bit strange that it just happens to be lining up for Putin's plan. That's a little bit weird, I must admit. Not saying anything's too crazy going on, but it is a little bit wild, I will say that. And it looks like Poland is also taking note of it. But I don't know. Who am I to say? What do y'all think, by the way, in the audience? The people watching right here, because we have people watching from all types of backgrounds, all types of sides, etc. What do y'all think about this? Because I will say, when you see it written out like this, how many things are stacking up against Europe right now, and also how many of these things that are stacking up are generally being caused by U.S. actions, I will say that it is benefiting Putin quite a bit, and it makes you wonder at some point, why is the U.S. doing this stuff over and over and over that's helping out Russia like this? Because we should be actually putting more sanctions on Russia. We should be making sure that NATO is solidified, but instead we're doing the opposite. Seems a little strange. But moving into our last post here, this one's going to go to Michael McKay, and we've also seen that Ukraine's put another hurt on Russia. They struck another refinery inside of Ufa this time on the territory of the Russian territory. And we've seen that Ufa is about 1,400 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, and it was a big hit that we've seen right here. So let's take a look at the video and see how large the strike was and see the destruction of another critical site of the Russian oil economy. And would you look at that? That's a big UFA right there. That's a big UFA. Ukraine is basically reversing the sanctions that have been lifted against Russia. They're reversing, and they're hitting, as you can see, refineries left and right. They're also taking out 40% or more of Russia's oil exportability. So they're trying to basically reverse the damage that the United States has caused by lifting sanctions on the Russian oil that was already loaded onto vessels. And it looks like they're doing a pretty damn good job of that. But we shouldn't have lifted sanctions in the first place. But at least Ukraine's kind of undoing that right here to a large degree, so that way Russia can't cash in and also start basically fund a war against Europe for the most part. But with that, folks, that is actually our last piece of news of the video. So if you found today's video informative and found it to be, I guess, enjoyable, I guess enjoyable is not really the right word. I would say this news right here is quite disturbing, but nonetheless, if you enjoyed it, smack the like button and also subscribe to the channel as well if you already haven't to get notified of these daily uploads just like this one, and also our nightly war news streams at 10 p.m. Eastern, where we cover all the rest of the news news happening beyond the short war video, and also we get to discuss it all with you and the audience as well, chat with you, also do polls, etc. So be sure to join us for the stream, because the stream is where it's at, I must admit. So we will see you all at 10 p.m. Eastern, and also if you want to support our channel financially, because we are largely crowdfunded by the viewers, you can do so on our Patreon page, and a link is in the description below for Patreon, where you can go over there and sign up for a monthly membership, and it could be as little as $5 or $10 a month, which is like, it costs the same as a maca chakalaka from your favorite coffee store these days with the cost of coffee out here. So we do appreciate the support very much in all seriousness, and we will see you all tonight on the stream. And with that, bye-bye for now.